2014 was a really weird postseason for the NFL. I think we can all agree with that, especially since the Cowboys won a playoff game. Now, when people think of this postseason, they think of a certain 4 games that rode the seats of some absurd karma train. I'm going to one-up the situation. The entire postseason was weird in its own freakishly abnormal way. So I know which 4 postseason games you're referring to. One of them includes a rare Cowboys playoff. Anyway, we'll get to those games, I promise you that. But before we do, I wanted to take a look at the other 7 playoff games first, because each of them are pretty special in the same way Nathan Peterman is special. This is the weirdest postseason in NFL history. Where to start? Well, the only place to start from is the worst playoff game I have ever seen. No, not the Rams-Patriots Super Bowl. The second one. Instead, this one involves the 11-5 Cardinals on the road against the 7-8-1 Panthers. The Cardinals had gotten off to a 9-1 start and seemed poised for the #1 seed in the NFC. But then starting quarterback Carson Palmer suffered a torn ACL on a non-contact injury against the Rams in Week 10. Then backup Drew Stanton was gone for the season in Week 15 again against the Rams, leaving the Cardinals no choice but to turn to Ryan Lindley. The team only won 2 of their last 6 games, enough for a playoff berth, but forcing them to play on the road against the Panthers. Now, injuries to Cam Newton spiked the team throughout the season. The team only had 3 wins through 13 weeks, but thanks to a historically bad NFC South, the Panthers became the first team with that many wins through that many weeks to make the playoffs thanks to a 4-game winning streak to end the season. The game itself was a must-watch in the same way a torture victim is forced to watch something they're not supposed to. Arizona had just 78 total yards of offense. If that sounds terrible, it's because it is. It's the fewest yards from any offense in any playoff game in any period of playoff history. And it's the only such case where a playoff offense couldn't even gain 100 yards in the post-merger era. The Panthers became just the second sub-500 team to win a playoff game, and are the last of such teams to do so. Later that night, the Ravens and Steelers faced off to continue another postseason matchup in arguably the NFL's most heated rivalry. See, this was the 4th playoff matchup between both teams. Pittsburgh won each of the first 3, coincidentally in years where they made the AFC Championship. All 3 of these games took place at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh, and this one was no different. But at long last, the Ravens got their first playoff win against the Steelers with a commanding 30-17 win over their hated rivals. Not only was it Pittsburgh's first playoff loss to a divisional opponent in 34 years, but it was also the first time a Baltimore franchise won a playoff series against a Pittsburgh franchise. You heard that correctly. In the previous 7 matchups between a Baltimore and Pittsburgh team in the playoffs, the Pirates won the World Series matchups in 1971 and 1979. The Baltimore Colts lost playoff games to the Steelers in 1975 and 1976, and the previously mentioned playoff matches from 2001, 2008, and 2010 all went Pittsburgh's way. But in the 8th try, Baltimore finally triumphed over a Pittsburgh team in the postseason, and they were moving on. Next, we have the Bengals in their annual opening playoff loss, this time on the road against the Colts. Keep in mind the Bengals have not won a playoff game since Bo Jackson's last game of action in the NFL in 1990, and some might say Bo put a hex on the franchise as a result, one they have not broken away from since. With this loss to the Colts, the Bengals extended their postseason win drought, which stands to this very day as the longest active streak of its kind. Head coach Marvin Lewis tied the record for most losses in the playoffs without a single win with 6, then in 2015 erased all doubt by doing it a 7th time. let's fast forward to the divisional round. Now, remember, we will tackle those 4 playoff games that rode the karma train that I mentioned and that you're all thinking of. But for now, let's continue. The Ravens and Patriots battled in the 4th postseason game between the two, with the Ravens leading the series 2-1. In the first game, the Ravens crushed the Patriots in New England 33-14 despite Joe Flacco completing just 4 passes on 10 attempts for 34 yards. In 2011, Lee Evans had a touchdown pass knocked out of his hands while Ravens kicker Billy Cundiff played the role of Billy Cundiff and shanked the game-tying field goal wide. The next season, the Ravens got their revenge with a 2-score victory to send them back to the Super Bowl. In this contest, the Ravens built an early 14-0 lead, one that they would squander at the end when a touchdown from Tom Brady late in the 4th quarter gave New England their first lead of the game. Then, with a minute and a half left inside the Patriots' 40, Joe Flacco threw this inexplicable pass up for grabs. Baltimore would get the ball back, but with few precious seconds left, Flacco could only muster up a Hail Mary that fell to the ground, ending Baltimore's season. Let's travel forward in time a bit further to the Panthers-Seahawks game. This game was absolute trash, but the team with the better record won this time. Now, the next sentence is not a joke. I swear to God, it's not. The Seahawks were the first defending Super Bowl champion to win a playoff game since 2005. Those 2005 Steelers never made it back to the playoffs in 2006. The 2006 Colts, shocked. The 2007 Giants lost to the Eagles in the divisional round. The 2008 Steelers never made it to the playoffs in 2009. The 2009 Bounty Gate Saints, beast mode happened. The 2010 Packers lost to the 2011 Giants at home despite being aided by the officials. The 2011 Giants never made it back to the playoffs. The 2012 Ravens never made it back to the playoffs. The 2013 Seahawks won the Super Bowl, then won their first playoff game of their 2014 season, the first team to do so since the 2004-2005 Patriots. In the Colts-Broncos game, the Colts remained undefeated in the playoffs against the Broncos, who had a severely used Peyton Manning, who at this point in his career was losing his world-renowned touch. He completed 26 passes but on a lofty 46 attempts, and settled with the second lowest yards per attempt in his postseason career, at the hands of the team he started his professional career with. Bittersweet irony. The Colts would then move on to the AFC Championship game against the Patriots, the one the Colts honored with that AFC finalist banner they hung up after losing this game 45-7. Oh yeah, this is also where the Deflategate scandal originated. Look, even if the balls were at regular inflation level or whatever the fuck it's called, the Colts were nowhere near as good as the Patriots on either side of the ball. I'm not sure it would have mattered either way. So now that we've gone over these 7 games, it's time to discuss the 4 games that truly made this the weirdest postseason I've ever seen. It's time to ride the karma train. Call this what you want. Butterfly effect, domino effect, chain of karma. These 4 games set off a string of catastrophes so devastating yet so connected to the previous game that it's hard to separate them from one another. It's the yin and yang of football, so let's go in depth to see what made these separate games one. These 4 karma-inducing games take place in each round, starting in the wild card round between the Lions and Cowboys. The Lions rode to an 11-5 record in 2014 thanks to 5 fourth-quarter comebacks and a top-3 scoring defense that gave up the fewest points in a 16-game season in franchise history since 1980. That defense was led by all-pro defensive tackle Ndamukong Suh, 25-year-old edge rusher Ezekiel Ansah, linebackers DeAndre Levy and Tahir Whitehead, veteran safety Glover Quinn, and young cornerback Darius Slay. The Cowboys had the luxury of trotting out a top offensive line, an explosive run game led by DeMarco Murray, and a career year from Tony Romo, an underrated mobile escape artist who never really got the credit he deserved during his playing career. But in 2014, Romo led the NFL in passer rating, completion percentage, and ESPN's QBR statistic. He's in rare company as one of the very few players to lead in all three categories and not win the MVP. The Lions got a hold of a rusty Cowboys team early, building a 14-0 lead that would stand until late in the second quarter on a Romo touchdown to Terrence Williams. The Lions then had a 27 third quarter lead go down the drain thanks to some defensive stands from the Cowboys that may or may not have included officiating help. A pass breakup by linebacker Anthony Higgins on 3rd and 1 was flagged for defensive pass interference. And then the refs picked up the flag and called the penalty off. This was obviously a very bad reversal and something that you just don't see this late. A penalty was called, then it was just waved off? When does this happen? Well, the Lions took too long to run a play on 4th and 1, settling for a delay of game when they needed 1 yard to move the chains. Now, if you want to know how much the NFL hates the Lions, consider how the Cowboys got away with offensive holding and received generous defensive holding calls that helped position them inside the red zone. Then, on 3rd and 8, Romo bought time and made a vintage Tony Romo play by connecting with Terrence Williams in the back of the end zone for the go-ahead score. This was followed by Matthew Stafford getting strip-sacked and DeMarcus Lawrence coughing the ball back to the Lions. But several plays later, Lawrence stripped Stafford and recovered his own forced fumble to redeem himself once and for all. Despite the refs' best efforts, the Cowboys just barely survived at home, and to the fanbase after their 90s dynasty ended, winning a playoff game was like winning a Super Bowl. Detroit's infuriating loss at the hands of many bullshit calls was redeemed by a massively sized call of bullshit in the Cowboys-Packers divisional round. Tony Romo and Aaron Rodgers were the top 2 MVP candidates for 2014, and as such, the game was closely contended throughout. But on a 4th and 2 late in the 4th quarter, down 26-21, Romo fired a prayer to All-Pro wideout Dez Bryant, which appeared to be caught just before the end zone. The Cowboys, who had won 2 playoff games since 1996 to this point, were mocked relentlessly for their lack of playoff success despite being labeled America's team. But this completion ensured they would be one step closer to making it back to a conference title and the Super Bowl. And then a review reversed the call on the field, turning the ball over on downs. This doesn't happen under today's perception of a completed catch, and with how the process has been examined since, many suspect this would be ruled a catch. But alas, the karma train claimed another passenger, and the Cowboys never got the ball back for the rest of the game. Game over, season over. The third game of karma comes in the championship round between the Packers and the Legion of Boom-led Seahawks. A couple weeks after this game, Aaron Rodgers will receive his second MVP award after another sensational year under center. I just wish we were able to relay that to Mike McCarthy in time. In the playoffs, it's frustrating to see teams settle for field goals at the opponent's 1-yard line, especially if it's on 4th down. Going back to 1996, Pro Football Reference has 20 such instances where this has happened in a playoff game. Some of the decisions to kick are kinda understandable considering the leads these teams have at the time, and at least these scenarios only occurred once. Except for this game. The Packers head coach elected to kick a field goal on not one, but 2 plays from the opponent's 1-yard line. The only such game where this has happened twice. McCarthy would later elect for a field goal on another 4th and 1, but this time from the Seahawks 22. I mean, yeah, sure, these were all made, but that's like saying you made a free throw against the 73-9 Golden State Warriors. This was one of the greatest defenses in NFL history, and teams generally do not get these many chances to punch it in against an all-time great secondary. That McCarthy had this conservative mindset regardless is gutless on his part. Nevertheless, the Packers had a 19-7 lead late in the 4th quarter thanks to 5 turnovers from the Seahawks, including 4 interceptions from quarterback Russell Wilson. The Seahawks would get a touchdown to cut the lead to 19-14, but the Packers would recover the onside kick, ensuring that they would get to play. Brandon Bostic punched his ticket on the karma train after this attempted onside kick recovery slipped through his hands and into the cradling arms of Chris Matthews. The Seahawks later took the lead on a Marshawn Lynch beast mode touchdown and expanded the lead to 3 thanks to a crazy 2-point conversion from Wilson that was somehow caught by the offense. Aaron Rodgers would respond quick, driving the team to field goal range and sending the game into overtime. But this would be the last time he'd see the ball. Rodgers last left the field with a 19-7 lead, just to be forced to try and tie it all up the next time his toe stepped on the turf. Now, I mentioned the 4 interceptions that Russell Wilson threw. Some of them were tipped by receiver Jermaine Kearse, who was having a horrendous day, with 0 catches on 5 targets. In fact, all 4 of Wilson's interceptions were aimed at Kearse. All 4. So naturally, Kearse catches the game-winning 35-yard touchdown in overtime to send the Seahawks to their 2nd consecutive Super Bowl. Another reminder that playoff football is on crack. Unfortunately, one of 2 scenarios had to play out in this game, and again, at the end of the day, it's just a game. 1. Brandon Bostic would have to be the scapegoat, or 2. Jermaine Kearse would have to be the scapegoat. Not only is it a shame, it's also ironic. One play can erase all the good you've done, and it can also erase all the bad. Kearse just happened to be the hero while Bostic became the scapegoat. Kearse avoided having that series of tipped interceptions define his legacy, while Bostic wasn't fortunate enough to avoid it. This string of unfortunate events led to a Patriots-Seahawks Super Bowl. The Seahawks, despite commanding a 24-14 lead in the second half, blew that and trailed late, but seemed to have a win wrapped up late in the game when Jermaine Kearse made one of the craziest catches in NFL history that seemed to parallel the helmet catch and Mario Manningham's sideline reception the New York Giants had in both Super Bowl wins against the Patriots. A play later, Seattle was now on the 1-yard line. New England was not using any of their remaining 2 timeouts despite less than a minute left to go. Tom Brady was in shock. There was no way this was happening to New England again. It didn't. Two plays after the Kearse catch, the Seahawks caught their own curse and completed the cycle of the karma train when Russell Wilson's pass to Ricardo Lockett on the 1-yard line was intercepted by undrafted rookie corner Malcolm Butler. An undrafted rookie corner. To this date, this is the only such occurrence in playoff history as far as Pro Football Reference is concerned, where a pass from the 1-yard line in crunch time of the 4th quarter was intercepted, and thus the craziest ending in Super Bowl history was born. To top it all off, Malcolm Butler's reward for completing the cycle of the karma train was receiving a brand new Chevy Colorado from Tom Brady, who received the truck as part of his Super Bowl MVP award. It seemed like each of these 4 games got crazier the further the postseason went along. We started at losing because of a streak of poor officiating, then losing on a catch ruled incomplete, then losing on a botched onside kick, and finally losing on an interception from the 1-yard line. The karma train does not fuck around. For whatever reason, the football gods gave each team who won these games a heavy dosage of karma sent smacking them in the face like a symbolic shovel. There's no way to make sense of these moments. These were a chain reaction of misfortune and misery. That's what made the 2014 postseason special. None of it made sense, and we were left scratching our domes, wondering what to think of what transpired. It's the mystery of it all, a phenomenon well beyond our understanding, that makes the NFL playoffs special. Upsets can happen, blowouts can occur, and sometimes the Lord sends forth Armageddon and completely destroys the hopes for one playoff team.